So 2 weeks ago we spoke about how Avraham Avinu, being the first person who takes war, goes out to war to save Lot. And we spoke about whether a person's allowed to basically put himself in danger to save other people, and we learned that war is different. And then we developed the idea of who's the person who's going to take responsibility for going out to war. Who is it? And we learned that the Rambam has a very interesting concept, and the Rambam speaks about Hilchot Milchama v'Milchomotehem, the laws of war, the laws of kings and the wars. And we learn from the Rambam that one of the jobs, or one of the main jobs of the king, is in actual fact to take responsibility to go out to war. And that's how we ended. And we asked that question, well, what about today? If there would be Halakha, if you would have Jewish law, what is the situation now? So there's a very interesting concept of Rav Kook, which was developed, and that's what we're going to discuss today at the beginning, and then we'll go ahead with development of the wars which took place in the Torah. So let's start off in line number 10 in front of you. Says Rav Kook the following: "Umimilchemet mitzvah lefi ani dati en limod klal." From the laws, the din of milchemet mitzvah, we can't learn. Dalken inyanei al kochach inyanei haklal de milchamot yotzim miklal ze de v'chai bahem. The Torah comes and tells us v'chai bahem. You've got to live by the Torah. You've got to live by the mitzvahs. And from here we know that every mitzvah is pushed aside if there's a situation of pikuach nefesh. There's a danger. Shabbos does not exist if there's pikuach nefesh. Now, a war. Says Rav Kook, there's no concept of v'chai bahem when it comes to a war. War pushes aside the mitzvah of v'chai bahem. So therefore, pikuach nefesh is allowed. You put yourself in danger in the situation of war. Rule number 1. Da'al kochoch inyanei haklal de milchamot yotzim mi miklal zeh de v'chai bahem. They're excluded from the laws of v'chai bahem. Sharei gam milchemet reshut muteret. There's certain situations where it's not a milchemet mitzvah, but in milchemet reshut. David HaMelech went out to conquer Syria at the time. How was he allowed to do it? Pikuach nefesh. Ve'ech matzinu, says Rav Kook, heter lachnis nefashot rabot b'sakana b'shvil harvacha. For economical reasons, you're allowed to go out to war. How can you do such a thing? Put yourself in danger for that. Ela de milchama v'hilchot sibur shiny. There are laws of the individual and the laws of Klal Yisrael. Right. Concept number 1. There are laws for the individual and laws for the whole of the Jewish people. Which means to say, when the Torah, according to Rav Kook, spoke, he spoke about situations of the individual. Running a country is completely different. And that Rav Kook comes along and tells us we learn from the concept of war. And that's why war is a function of a king. It's not me as an individual. It's the leaders of the Jewish people who've got responsibility that at certain periods of history you go out to war, and running a country is different than my own private house. And therefore there are laws of pikuach nefesh of the individual and pikuach nefesh of a country. Now, let's try to understand this. Okay, for 2,000 years, the Jews never had a country. They never had anything like they have now. We lived as individuals. Pardon? We never gave up Eretz Yisrael, but we never lived in a country. We never governed our own country. Pardon? In our own country. Right? We had ghettos. We had places where Jews lived. But again, they weren't under their own control. Now, what creates a country is Jewish people in their own country has different laws. Has different laws. And when you come to different laws of running a country, then there has to be a whole new conceptual idea. And that's what Rav Kook is telling us. Milchamot, please take note of line number 3. In line number, 14. Elder Milchama, Vilchot Sibur Shaini. The laws of running a country are completely different. And V'ulai, Hu Michlal Mishpatei Hamlucha. And where do we learn it from? We learn it from the Mishpat Hamlucha, the laws of kings. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a melech, things completely change. When Yoshua all of a sudden comes into Eretz Yisrael, he now runs a country. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with running a country? It's not my own private house. It's not even a few Jews living together. And therefore, for instance, says Rav Kook, Sha'ayu vadai rabim v'nimsarim ba'uma, kamo shekatav Rambam, etc., etc., etc. And he carries on and says, in line number 17, he says, V'chol eile v'od kayotze behem, הם שרידים, they are remnants שנשארו לנו ממשפט המלוכה, שהרי אינם, please take note of the next lines, שהרי אינם על פי גדרי התורה של הלכות יחיד. They don't follow the laws of the individual. What's pikuach nefesh for the individual, and then there's pikuach nefesh for the tzibur, for the community, for the country. Yes.
Why does he use Lashon v'ulai?
Because there's no source for this in the Torah. There's no source for it. That means when the Torah speaks about certain things, okay, and we'll give ourselves perhaps an example of this in a minute, okay? The Torah doesn't speak to us as how to run a country. It speaks about, even in Sefer Dvorim, where we do have a country, it always speaks about what I've got to give to the Kohen, okay? What my individual responsibility is. What is the responsibility of a country, okay, to its inhabitants? That the Torah doesn't speak about. Or very rarely. 1 minute, Harold. See, I know I'm frightening you all. Okay? The Torah doesn't speak about that. Now let's give ourselves an example. Okay? What's today's date? Today's date is, what did we say? 1 minute, not the Goyish date. Jewish date. Jewish date is, pardon? Yud Zayin. Correct? 7 days' time is Chanukah. Now, when the Greeks came into Eretz Yisrael, what did they do? They wanted people to take on their religion. Is that a reason to go out to war?
Against them.
1 minute. You all say you guess so. Where do we learn it from?
Against.
What?
Against their coming into.
Against their coming in. What was our permission to go out to war? Surely Avodah Zorah is a private issue. It's an issue on the individual. Pardon? Good. Irani Dachat. Is that war? Right. Pardon? Who was allowed to go out? Who gave permission to do Irani Dachat? 70, the Sanhedrin. That means it's not something which I, as an individual, go out and kill. Iranidachas has laws of a country and its responsibility to its what? Its inhabitants. That is the king. The king, the Sanhedrin, etc., etc. The Torah doesn't speaks about the liability of the individual towards the country. Or John Kennedy, what did he say? Don't say what I can give or what you, etc., etc. Okay? Which means to say what? The concept is, what is the responsibility of the government towards its inhabitants? The Torah doesn't speak about that, or very rarely. That's why it's the ulai. Because when it comes to a king, he's got responsibility to his inhabitants. Economic, okay, in the olden days, there wasn't enough food. David HaMelech said, okay, we'll go out and what? Capture the countries around us. Am I as an individual allowed to go out to war? No. That is what Rav Kook says, the laws of tzibur, the laws of a government. And that the Torah B'koshi speaks about. And therefore, all of a sudden, Rav Kook puts it in the box, in the framework, which is known as Mishpat HaMlucha, the Mishpat of the Sanhedrin. Its responsibility towards the individuals. Harold, what do you want to ask?
Well, what I was going to say is that what we discussed 2 weeks ago, that Avraham Avinu, we can learn it out. The Torah does speak about this because Avraham Avinu is building a nation. He's building a society. He digs wells, meaning he does infrastructure. He has international relations with Bnei Chet and Avimelech, etc. He creates a military.
One problem with all that.
He does all the things.
Correct.
You need
One
to
problem
do
with that.
to create society.
One problem with that.
And that's the motto.
One problem with that. Is that Taryag mitzvahs?
Huh?
Is that one of the Taryag mitzvahs? 613 mitzvahs.
It's the model that the Torah is telling us and showing us that yes,
okay, so
building
that
society with all of those components
could be correct, but the question is
it's not a lie. It's there.
No, 1 minute.
And he goes to war.
No. But there's a problem there. How far do we learn from the avot as far as mitzvahs are concerned? 1 minute. You could say stories. But there's a huge problem, okay? And we're going to learn, that's why we're learning Sefer Bereshis. But the models are there, but it doesn't become, and that's why Rav Kook has to say that which mitzvah, which section of laws does that fit in? Which sections of laws? Remember, there's moral, a moral responsibility, and there's legal responsibility. Is Avraham Avinu allowed to mechalo Shabbos for that?
Well, there's Brit Avot and there's Brit Sinai, and
minute.
they are co-equal.
No,
they have obligations in both.
The Rambam comes along and tells
us.
Rambam comes along and says we don't learn the Brit mitzvahs from Avraham Avinu. Why we keep Milah is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Moshe Rabbeinu.
Okay.
Right. So that what you can say is the moral framework can be learned from the Avot. Is the legal concept, the halachic concept, is a completely different ballgame. Right. Okay. So therefore, says Rav Kook, in which is the legal concept which you're putting it into? What is the legal framework of it? And that's why Rav Kook has to say that the only place where we have it is the concept of, like you said before, Irani Dachat, or Mishpat HaMlucha. That is the framework. And then all of a sudden, through the laws of Melucha, come the country's responsibility towards its inhabitants. Now, in the time of the Chashmonaim, Chanukah, what was the legal framework which allowed Matityahu as a Kohen Gadol to go out to war? Perhaps my Avodah Zorah, okay, we've got to give up our life for it. All of a sudden Matityahu comes along and says, no guys, no, we don't give up our lives for it. We fight for our rights. Becomes milchama, becomes a war. And we learn from Matityahu, okay, and he was Mechalel Shabbos, and it's brought in the Sefer HaMakkabim. that they fought on Shabbos. What do you mean?
That after
What?
the Maccabim did not fight first on Shabbos. They laid down their weapons on Shabbos, and they all got put.
Those were the people before Matityahu came out with his chidush.
Well, it's a very practical decision.
Exactly, because he all of a sudden come along and said, no, religious rights, which is part of the framework of the Jewish people, now becomes a national concept. It's not something which is just between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now the nation fights for its religious rights. So therefore that is the first time we have in the time of the Maccabim, okay, when it came to the Churban Bayis, there it was national, they were exiling us. We are fighting to stay in Eretz Yisrael. The Greeks never ever told us to leave Eretz Yisrael. They never told us, they didn't want to exile us. What did they want to do? In Eretz Yisrael, to become like them. No.
They wanted to take Eretz Yisrael out of the Jew.
Pardon? Okay, correct. Yeah, but we still live here. So therefore the concept of Matityahu is that Eretz Yisrael, that we fight, there's a din of milchama, to exist not only in Eretz Yisrael, but to exist as Jews in Eretz Yisrael. Now that you don't find in the whole Torah. You don't find such a thing. Milchama was only to get the goyim out. Milchemet mitzvah, get rid of Amalek. Okay? So therefore, that is in the framework of the rights, of the legal rights of the king or the leaders to go out and do it. They declared war on such a situation. Now where do you find it? Initiated it.
Not just responding.
No, initiated. Right.
If you don't respond, you don't have to.
Right. So then let's carry on. Let's carry on in Rav Kook what he writes in brackets. In line number 18. ובמקום אחר ביארתי שגם אלה יש להם מקור בתורה. All these have got a source in the Torah. אלא שדרכי הדרשה בזה נמסרו לכל מלך כבינתו הרחבה. A king has the right to learn the Torah according to what? The environment and the period of history which he lives in. So now the king has the right to use the framework which Avraham Avinu created, and he was got now a legal right, halachic right, because if it's written in the Torah, the king can use this as a source. 1 minute. We're talking about a huge chidush, a huge new concept, and that's what Rav Kook says. Darkei hadrasha bezeh nimseru lekol melech kebinato harchava. The way he understands it, David HaMelech understands that in order that the Jewish people can exist economically, what do? We go out and fight. Even though there was no danger, there's an economic danger. It's not a physical danger. Right? Yet, David HaMelech says, we need to do it. Carry on. Umishum achi, says Rav Kook, even more chidush. Tzarich sheyichtov lo shnei sifrei Torah. Why does he have 2 sifrei Torah? V'kol echad l'shem kedusha miyuchedet. Each one has got a specific relationship with it. V'al sefer Torah sheshayach lechol ben Yisrael ne'emar levilti rum levavol tevilti sur. One sefer Torah is the king as an individual. As an individual, he's got his own liabilities towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like every single other Jew. I put on tefillin, Moshe Rabbeinu puts on tefillin, David HaMelech puts on tefillin. Moshe Rabbeinu is no different than anybody else. We all keep the same 613 mitzvahs. But Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech had another Sefer Torah, in inverted commas. What was their Sefer Torah? Not as an individual, but as a leader, as a king. And he looks in the Sefer Torah in a different way than an individual will look at it. Does everyone understand what I mean? Okay? I look at it as an individual. A leader has to look at the Sefer Torah through the eyes of a leader of the Jewish people. And that is exactly what the Jewish people say to Yeshua right at the beginning. What do they say to him? They say to him, anybody who rebels against you is chayav mitah. Let me read it out to you.
Oh, here.
It's okay. It's Haftorah of Sefer of Simchas Torah.
I have a Tanakh.
It says the following. Vayanu et Yoshua leimor. And they answer Yoshua saying, Kol asher tzivitanu nelech naaseh. Whatever you tell us to do, we will do. V'kol asher tishlachenu, wherever you will send us, nelech. K'chol asher shamanu Moshe. Whatever we heard from Moshe, kei nishma elecha. Rak Hashem yeh Elokecha imach, God will be with you, kasher yeh Moshe. Kol ish, any man, asher yamre et picha, who will rebel against you, Yoshua, v'lo yishma et dvarecha, l'chol asher tesavenu, yumat. The Jewish people come and say, if there's somebody who rebels against you as a leader, you've got the right to put him to death. No such chiyuv mitah is mentioned in the whole Torah. Nowhere.
Remember John Kennedy?
Pardon?
Remember how JFK went? He was assassinated.
So no, this is the other way around. Not that somebody goes and kills the king. The king has got the right to take away, if there's any civil, in inverted commas, disobedience, and somebody who's going to rebel against the king, anarchy, the king can put him to death. Like Shlomo killed Yoav. Because Yoav was Mored Malchut. Adonijah was Mored Malchut. They all rebelled against Shlomo HaMelech. And what does Shlomo HaMelech do? Puts them to death. Where's that written in the Torah? No. This is the Torah, now Rav Kook says, of the king. Because the king has to realize that what? Under certain conditions they can never afford to be rebellion. Yeah.
Isn't that sufficiently important? I mean, crucial, I would say. You would have expected it to be in the Torah. There must be a reason Hashem Dafka didn't.
Because the Torah speaks about my individual responsibilities towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So why doesn't Hashem put into the Torah the other set of responsibilities?
Good question. Very good question. Okay? And I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to it.
You know, with the money was there.
The question is, why doesn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu write that in the Torah? Okay? Because nobody ever dared rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody ever did. And correct, the only one who did was Korach. And what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to go and kill him. You have to.
He's not rebelling just against me, he's rebelling against you.
Okay, however you explain it. We're not going to learn Korach now. That's a completely other subject. But the concept of idea is that Korach was the only one who had the guts to stand up against Moshe Rabbeinu as a rebel. Okay? Yoshua is the only book in the whole Tanakh where nobody stands up to Yoshua. Nobody. We once spoke about it when we learned about Yoshua. Yoshua is the leader who everybody respected. Nobody ever complained against Yoshua. They complained against Moshe, they complained about everybody.
But if a Shlemazel becomes the leader,
Who says he was a Shlemazel?
no, I say subjectively or objectively, modern Israeli politics.
I'm not. I've told you. How many years have I been teaching you, Phil? 10. Do I ever speak politics? No. There are plenty of people who try to pull me into it. Never.
But you know,
Uh,
you hint that.
I'm not talking about politics. Okay? Now, that is the concept. That is the concept which Rav Kook speaks about. Two specific Sifrei Torah. One, the leader's responsibility to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech, Yoshua, we are all equal. Now there's a Sefer Torah which Yoshua has to use and David HaMelech has to use, how they're going to run a country according to the Torah. And those are completely different eyes. Completely. Right. And that's why, says Rav Kook, this concept of what is known as Hilchot Tzibur, the laws of running a country. Okay? And that is why the Chai Bohem is the law of the individual towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now comes when there's war. Is there v'chai bohem? And the king has the right to come and say, no, there's no v'chai bohem. You put yourself, I have the right to put all the individuals in danger in order to save the country. There's no chai bohem. There's a difference between pikuach nefesh of the individual and pikuach nefesh of the country. And that is in the hands of the king or the leaders of the country. And that's what Rav Kook speaks about in another place, that the leaders of a modern day country have got the same din as a king. But the concept is there's a huge difference between and two different languages. And that's why that's the concept of what is known as Hilchot Tzibur. Hilchot Tzibur, the laws of a country. Right. That is what, in beginning, what Avraham Avinu teaches us. Now we go to the next stage, the next war in the Torah. The next war in the Torah happens to be this week's Parshat Shavua. Let's turn the page. Collective punishment. Right. Is there such a thing as collective punishment? Let's look in the Torah. What does Avraham Avinu? Avraham Avinu goes out to save Lot. Okay? But on the other hand, and he goes out to war. And in order to save Lot, what does he most probably do? That's what he kills a few of the army. Okay? What is the reaction of Avraham Avinu afterwards? Now, the reaction of Avraham Avinu afterwards is very interesting. Because when it comes to Sodom, what does he do? He pleads with Hashem. Let's read in the Psukim. Vayigash Avraham vayomer, ha'af tispeh tzadikim rosha? Are you going to kill off a tzadik with a rosha? Ulai yesh 50 tzadikim betoch ha'ir. You got 50 tzadikim in Gaza, if you'll find them. Ha'af tispeh v'lo tisa lamakom leman 50 tzadikim. Perhaps you should save Sodom with their 50 tzadikim. Chalila lecha. What does Avraham Avinu say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Chalila lecha me'asot kadavar hazeh. How can you do such a thing? Heaven forbid you should do such a thing. Lamit tzadikim rasha. Vayak tzadik rasha. Chalila lecha shovet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. Is there collective punishment going to Avraham Avinu? No. There's no way. Why? Because you've got to differentiate between civilians and Hamasnikim. 1 minute, wait. Don't. Let's not run. Let's get the thesis.
I have a basic question. This is not a war situation.
Correct. Wait. What is the first concept? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going out to war against Sodom. The angels are going to wipe out Sodom. That's what they're going to do. They're going to wipe out Sodom. They're going to wipe out Amorah.
Because they're Russian.
1 minute. But Avraham Avinu comes along and says, perhaps you'll find some tzaddikim and therefore collective punishment is not allowed. Let's go to Korach. Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe ve'el Aaron le'imor, Hibadlu mitoch ha'ida azot, va'achale otam karaga. Says to Moshe Rabbeinu, get away from all this Adat Korach. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Line number 47. Vayiplu al pneihem. Aaron and Moshe fall on their faces. Vayomru. Kel elukei haruchot l'chol basar. Ha'ish echad yecheta. V'al kol ha'ida tikzof. Korach, Datan va'aviram. You're going to wipe out all their families. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to them. How can you go and wipe out all the people, all their supporters. You've got one leader who perhaps has caused a problem. He's managed to sway the population with him. Does that turn them all into Rashaim? Moshe Rabbeinu, Avraham Avinu, they both say, Sdom, Korach. What's Avraham Avinu's reaction after the war where he saves Lot? Let's look inside. Achar advarim ha'ele, line number 50. Achar advarim ha'ele, haya dvar Hashem el Avram b'machazeh le'mor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Avraham Avinu in a vision, saying, Al tira Avraham, don't worry Avraham. Anochi magen lach, I am gonna look after you. Scharcha harbe mod. Says Rashi, Achar advarim ha'ele. Kol makom shene'emar achar, wherever it's written in the Torah achar, it's connected to the previous parsha. Achar is straight afterwards. Acharei muflag. When it says acharei, it's a long time afterwards. Okay? If it's written achar, it's immediate. If it's acharei, it's a long time afterwards. Right? Take a note when we say in the Akedah, Vayhi acharei hadvarim ha'elu, a long time afterwards. The story of the Akedah is a long time after the birth of Yitzchak. 37 years. But if it's written in the Torah, achar, it's immediate. Now, this is immediately, then, the Bris Bein Absorim is immediately after the war, the 4 and the 5 kings. Achar shenasa lo nes, after the miracle was done, shaharag et hamlachim, he killed the kings. Vaya doeg v'omer, shema kibalti sachar al tzidkotai, perhaps I've received too much reward for what I've done. Lachen amar lo hamakom, al tira Avraham, anochi magen lecha min ha'onesh, I'm going to protect you from the punishment.
What punishment?
Shelo te'anesh al kol otam nefashot she'haragta, for all the people you killed. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Moshe, to Avraham Avinu? You went out to war to save Lot, but what did you do on the way? You killed civilians. You killed soldiers. Avraham Avinu is worried. Why is he worried? Perhaps those people didn't deserve to die. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to him? Ma she'ata doeg al kibul scharcha, what you're worried about, your reward for saving Lot, perhaps your reward doesn't exist. Because what did you do? At the expense of goodness knows how many people you killed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't worry, scharcha b'mod. What pricks, 1 minute Paul, what pricks Avram's conscience?
Innocent death.
Innocent deaths. And that's why he pleads to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Sodom. He pleads to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, how can you do such a thing? Perhaps they're 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Because the conscience of Avraham Avinu is so deep about the importance of human life, that pricks his conscience. Right. So how do you deal with collective punishment? Yes, Paul.
Isn't that also in this week's parasha? Vayira?
1 minute, we'll get to that in a minute. 1 minute. Let's get to it. Wait. No, that Vayira is before the war, before Mimit.
Yeah,
But it's also part of it. Correct. Let's go next. Okay? And what? Okay? We'll do that. That's the next page. Next side. Vayavo Shaul at Ir Amaleki. Shaul is commanded to go and attack Amalek. Go and kill Amalek. Vayavo Shaul ad Ir Amalek vayarev benachal. Vayomer Shaul el Akini. the Kenites, the children of Yisrael, lived very, very close proximity to Amalek. Vayomer Shaul el Akini, L'chu, go away. Suru, depart. Rudu mitoch Amaleki, run away from Amalek. Pen osifcha imo, lest you will be killed, you will be involved in this battle. V'ata asita chesed, because you did kindness in kol bnei Yisrael, ba'alotam, Mitzrayma. And what did the Kini do? They leave. Says the Malbim, Banachal hazeh, hayu hakini ro'eh tzon, hayu shochnei olim. Amar lo sheyasuru mimakom hamilchama, go away from the place of war. Pen osifcha imo, perhaps chas v'chalila you will be involved in the war. And you did kindness. You cannot be involved. You're not like Amalek. So they went out. So what is Shaul scared of? Innocent deaths. Now comes what Paul says, this week's parsha. Vayashuvu ha-malachim. And the malachim come. The angels come back to Yaakov. Banu el achicha el Esav. V'gam holech likratcha v'arba meot ishimo. It's got 400 people. Vayira Yaakov ma'od. Vayetzer lo. And Yaakov was scared and he was very troubled. Vayitzer lo, milashon tsar. He was troubled. Vayachetz et ha'am asher ito, ve'et hatzon, ve'et habakar, ve'et hamagli, divides up his camps. Says Rashi, Vayira, Vayitzer. 2 words. Vayira, Shema, Yehareg. He was very worried if Esau would kill him. Vayetzer lo, and he would be troubled. Im Yaharog et acherim. If he'll kill other people.
That's
Very nice. Okay. Now, let's take the situation. What do his messengers come along and say? Esau's got 400 people coming to fight you. What do you mean? If they're all coming to fight me, then that's milchoma. If it's milchoma, what have I got to be worried about? They're coming to fight me. That's what they want to do. So don't I have a right to fight back? Why should I be scared? Now here, there are no individuals who are tzaddikim. They're all with Esau. They're all Hamasnikim, in inverted commas. Do we have to worry if they're proper Hamasnikim? They're coming to war. So why should Yaakov Avinu be worried? Right. Now, that's the question which the commentaries of Rashi ask. So you can all have a good Dvar Torah this week. Okay? Let me just say, we won't manage it today because it's already. But there's another story of a war, which is Shimon Levi and Dinah, which also has huge halachic ramifications. But let's start off with this one. So Yaakov Avinu is petrified. Now we've learned, so what is the framework? What is the Shulchan Aruch of a tzibur now, as Harold said before? What do we learn from the Avos? What do we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu? That collective punishment is a problem. It's a huge problem. Because, what? The objective of the Torah is, if everybody, as the Mishnah comes along and tells us in Sanhedrin, that what? That everybody's got a Tselem Elokim, and nobody is similar to anybody else, Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem, then I have to care about other people. And that's what the Torah, the framework of the Torah in actual fact is. Okay? The story of Korach. The story of Avraham Avinu worried him. The story of Sodom. And here Yaakov Avinu is worried that he's going to kill other people. So one of the great Mefarshim of Rashi, unfortunately he's not well known, but he was one of the greatest Gedolim in Germany, in Poland. He lived in the 1600s. You've got it in front of you. He lived from 1550 till 1623. His name was Rabbi Socher Ber Eilenberg. He wrote fascinating Sforim called Ber Sheva on the Gemara, and he wrote a Perush on the Torah called Seder Laderech. And he was a pupil of another one of the greatest poskim on the Shulchan Aruch, who wrote parallel to the Shulchan Aruch. His name was Reb Mordechai Yaffe, the Baal HaLavush. The Baal HaLavushim. Reb Mordechai Yaffe. Okay? Very famous Sforim, the Mishnah Berurah quotes him, all the great commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, the whole time quote him. And he was a pupil of his. And his Rebbe, the Tzeidur LaDerech, relates to a chidush of his teacher, Reb Mordechai Yaffe. And he says the following. Katav Mori HaGaon, line number 18. We're going to learn this very slowly because there are foundations in this which are so important. Katav Mori HaGaon Reb Mordechai Yaffe. My teacher, the Gaon Reb Mordechai Yaffe, wrote on this. Devadai haya mutar Yaakov mutar larog es acherim. It's obvious that Yaakov Avinu could kill the other people. Afilu im lo ba'u lahorgo. Even if they weren't coming to him, ela larog et anashav. They were going to kill his children. They were going to kill all his people, his servants. V'chol sheken im ba'u larog gam banav v'nashav. And they're coming to kill off his wives and children. So what do you mean Yaakov Avinu's? Okay, so perhaps they won't kill me. Perhaps Esav will kill me. But what will his other guys do? They'll kill off everybody else. So why should Yaakov be worried? And he says the following. Ve'ein zeh. This is not similar to l'shar rodef. Somebody who's running after you. Now he doesn't know he's got this knife in his hand. A criminal. A mafia guy, okay? One of the mafia guys running after you with a gun. You've got a gun. Now, what do? Now, the chatchila, what should you do? You should aim for his legs. You don't aim for killing, okay? Because that's the halakha. ואין זה דומה לשאר רודף שאסור להורגו כל זמן שיכולים להציל את הנידף באחד מאיבריו של רודף. If the police can fire to his legs, okay, and not aim for his chest or not aim for his brain, then do that. That's the din of roidef. Okay, I'm allowed to kill him. Spectators, police, should first of all aim for his legs. Don't kill him. Okay, why? Anybody who gets up to kill you, get up to kill him. Mikra, dim machteret yimatzeh aganav. Buka v'met ein lo damim. Lefi sheba'ai liskei nefashot. If that is the case, line number 85, im legabe mamon amrinan ken, if concerning money you say habal or gacha shkem lorgo, a person who's coming to kill you, get up and kill him. Okay, kal v'chome mi sheba keneged esh echad, aval pi she'eino rotze la'arog oto, even though he doesn't want to kill him. Esav's soldiers don't want to kill Yaakov; they leave to Esav, but they're going to kill his wife and children. אלא רוצה להרוג אשתו ובניו, או אפילו אנשיו ועבדיו ובני ביתו, וכי לא ידע שיעמוד זה כנגד להצילם. Obviously Yaakov will stand up against him. Is anybody going to stand by and let somebody kill his wife and children? Obviously not. So therefore, why was Yaakov Avinu worried? אלא ועדיי לדעת כן בה. שאם יעמוד זה כנגד להציל אשתו ובניו ואנשיו, יעמוד גם הוא עליו ויהרגנו. אם כן, למה היה יעקב מיצר יעקב שמהרוג את החיילים? הלא בהתר הוא לא הורגם. He's allowed to do it. That means you are allowed to go out and kill somebody who's attacking your wife and children. There's no problem about it. Clear cut.
Is this limited to the family?
Pardon?
Is this limited to the family?
What about now? Have I got to worry about going injuring their legs? No. I don't have to go out and worry about their legs. I've got to go out and kill them. So why is Yaakov Avinu worried? Why does Yaakov Avinu worried? What troubles him? So,
you'd say he'd be worried that he'd be killed.
Pardon?
Why was he not worried about that he would be killed?
he is worried if he's going to be killed. That's vayar, vayira. There are two parts in this sentence. One is that he will be killed, and the other one is if he's going to kill somebody else.
The other side.
The other side. Those are his worries. One, that he will be killed, and the other side, he will kill other people. So says the Levush, why should he be worried? All these 400 guys who are coming, what's their objective? To kill him, to kill his family, to wipe them out. To take them as prisoners, kill them off. So what's Yaakov Avinu worried about? But there are 400 people with him. He needs 400 people. Esau needs 400 people to kill just Yaakov Avinu.
So now you're making a guilt by association.
Pardon? Who?
The soldiers, because Esau said he was going to kill Yaakov.
1 minute.
All these people are associated with Esau.
So that's what Yaakov Avinu feels.
So
When they say, what is the messengers coming to tell you? V'gam holech litratcha v'arba meot ish imo. 400 people. What does Yaakov Avinu feel now? So Phil says it's a war. What do you feel? You justifying Esau?
we know what Esau is.
No. What does Yaakov feel?
Fear.
Fear for what?
For himself and his family.
And therefore, why is he scared? Why does he feel scared? Because what does Esau promise to do? To wipe him out.
Yeah.
That's what Esau was going to do.
400 soldiers.
And with 400 soldiers fight against all the people of Yaakov Avinu.
So now you're saying that all these people are also guilty because they're associated with Esau, who already made a promise.
Obviously, those who are with Esau are the guilty ones. But I'm allowed to defend myself. And that's why should Yaakov Avinu be worried about defending himself? That's the problem.
Well, why not?
Pardon?
Why should he not be worried?
What?
Because
He'd
Hashem
be an
already
idiot
told him
if
he'd
he
be
wasn't
protected.
worried.
What do you say?
He didn't know what's going to happen.
No, but I'm worried about killing them. That's what Rashi says. Vayitzer lo im yarog hu et acherim. That's what worries Yaakov Avinu. My guilty conscience. That's Yaakov Avinu's worry. His guilty conscience. Yeah.
Could it possibly be that Yaakov is suddenly reminded about that his children are going to be spending 400 years in slavery?
Sorry, what?
Could it possibly be that Yaakov is suddenly reminded that his children are going to be spending 400 years of slavery?
No, that's later on. That's Yaakov Avinu's when that goes down to Mitzrayim. At the moment, he's not worried about 400 years' time. He's worried about tomorrow.
What about today?
Today. Right.
But maybe Yaakov could negotiate with Esau and survive without.
Correct. But there's two worries. One in negotiation. How does Yaakov Avinu prepare himself? Tefillah, negotiation, and what? But when he hears that he's coming with 400 soldiers, is he coming to negotiate or is he coming to kill?
We don't know that.
Well, what do you think he would do? If he's coming to negotiate, how many people would he come with? 10. He doesn't need 400 against the... Okay? He doesn't need 400. Okay, so therefore, what's his worry now? Explains the... What's it called? Explains the... Seid al Aderech in line number 90. In line number 89. Ele vadai. Lo haya Yaakov meitzer, ele shema yarog es Esau. His whole worry is going to kill off Esau. He is going to kill Esau. What? What?
I said halavai.
Why? V'yikalelenu aviv k'mo shekasuv b'Nson Chuma. Yitzchok loves Esau. And Yaakov is worried, what will my father's reaction be if I go and kill Esau? Do I want another Cain and Hevel business?
Even if it's justified.
Even if it's justified. Okay? That is the explanation of the Seder there, which seems to be a bit hard to accept. That my only worry is because Rashi doesn't say that. What does Rashi say? Vayitze lo im yarog hu et acherim. You should have said Esau. But there's another explanation of this Rashi. Okay? Line number 100 in the Sifsei Chachomim. Inami yesh lomar. Yaakov vaday lo haya yaresh shem yarog et Esau. He was never worried about that. Zekaimalan abolar g'chosh gem lorogo. אלא שיעקב היה מתיירא שמא יהרוג הוא אנשים של עשו. ואולי הם לא באו להרוג את יעקב, אלא אנשים של יעקב. רק עשו בא להרוג את יעקב, ואף בשביל עשו, אנשיו של עשו היו רודפים, אוקיי? וכל אדם ניתן להציל. line number 104, ויעקב היה רואה שמא יהרוג אותם מכוח בלבול המלחמה. The time of war, you've got a problem. Confusion. And Yaakov Avinu is worried that in a time of confusion, I didn't need to kill this guy. I could have just chopped off his legs. I didn't need to kill him. Yaakov Avinu is worried about, will I have the self-control at the time of war and make sure that innocent people or people who I'm not sure who might be forced to come with Esau, and my conscience and his conscience pricks him. Collective punishment. That is what Yaakov's worried about. Mitoch bilbul hamilchama. Time of confusion. Again, what do we learn from this? Now, we've got 4 people who speak about collective punishment. Moshe Rabbeinu with Korach, Avraham Avinu with Sodom, Shaul, and he tells the Kenites to get out, and now Yaakov Avinu. So what happens here? What is the story all about? How do we deal with situations like this?
Dilemmas.
What?
Dilemma.
The dilemma of collective punishment. Now, we're going to go to the next story. What's the time? What time is?
That this took place here around the corner of the shul.
What?
This took place around the corner of the shul. Around the corner of the shul, Simchas Torah, we used to dance past the graves.
Yeah.
A couple soldiers still exist here around the corner. And what was the problem? They were following the orders.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now, let's go to the story of Dinah. Story of Dinah. Vayhi b'yom hashlishi. Also this week's parsha. Vayhi b'yom hashlishi. B'yotam ko'avim, after they convinced the people of Shechem to all have bris milah, ויחו שני בני יעקב, שמעון ולוי, אחי דינה, איש חרבו, ויבואו על העיר בטח, ויהרגו כל זכר. They killed everybody off. No problems. ואת חמו ואת שכם בנו הרגו לפי חרב. ויקחו את דינה מבית שכם ויצאו. בני יעקב באו על החללים, the children of Yaakov came on the dead people, ויבוז העיר אשר תמרח אותם. And they took everybody. Shimon וlevi were the Rambos. And what did they do? They wiped out the whole of Shechem. And they took everybody as prisoners, etc., etc. Now, Yaakov Avinu doesn't criticize them at this point. And all he says is, what are the people of the country going to do around me? So later on in his life, Yaakov Avinu does criticize them, etc., etc. But the question is, did Shimon v'Levi have any legal right to do such a thing? Their sister, was a prisoner in Gaza, in Shechem. And they go in there, and they wipe them out. They kill everybody. Ask the Ramban. V'rabim yish'alu. And many people will ask, Ech asu b'nei Yaakov atzadikim now, Shimon v'Levi still remained as part and parcel of Klal Yisrael. Levi becomes the high priest. Okay? Shimon had his own problems. Okay? Now, so the Ramban comes along and the Maharal brings the Rambam, Ach kashe, im Shechem chata, if Shechem sinned, kol ha'ir ma chat'u laharog. Why did the whole city be killed off? Why did they do it? Didn't they learn from their father, their grandfather, Avraham Avinu? V'tiretz harambam, de bnei Noach mitzuvim al dinim. Bnei Noach are commanded to have a legal system. V'aveira achat she'over, and if they do a sin, bnei Noach ne'erag al yado. V'kan ra'u ha'maseh hara hazeh. And here, the people of Shechem see the kidnapping of Dinah. Kidnapping of Dinah. Okay? Did they ask Dinah? No, they didn't. They kidnapped her. They took her into, what's it called? Into Gaza. Hamas took all these people. Now, says the Maharal, says the Rambam, V'chan ra'u hamaseh hara hazeh. And the Rambam says, all the people saw this. The inhabitants of Shechem see their leader behaving like an animal. V'lo danahu. Nobody stood up against him. Nobody. They all are passive spectators. They perhaps cheered him on. Lekach hayu chayavim mita. Says the Rambam, because that, they were liable to death penalty. Because they are supposed to set up law courts. You didn't set up law courts. You didn't judge your leader. Then what? Then everybody's liable to death penalty. Because you should have law courts. You should have a legal system. Okay? Nixon was thrown out because of Watergate. Okay? Here, the people of Shechem couldn't care less what their leader did. Says the Maharal.
At that time,
1 minute. ובאמת דבר מהם אלה דבורים. כי איך אפשר להם לדון את בן נשיא הארץ? How can you judge Sinwar? How can you judge Mashal? כי היו יראים מהם. Everybody's scared of them. ואף על גב שנסתוו על דינים, even though they were, what's it called, commanded to have law courts. היינו כשיוכלו לדין, when they could do it. אבל אונס רחמונה פטרי, they were in a situation of, they didn't have a choice. אונס. ואיך אפשר להם לדון אותם? How can they do it? That's the question of the Maharal. And now the Maharal comes along and says a whole new concept. Venire de lo kashemidi. Line number 124. Why? Mishum de lo dami shnei umot. כגון בני יעקב וכנענים, שהם שני אומות, כדכתיב, והיינו לעם אחד. ומתחילה, לא נחשבו לעם אחד. ולפיכך, הותר להם ללחול כדין אומה שבא ללחום על אומה אחרת, שהתורה התירה. ואף על גב, שאמרה תורה, כי תקרא אל עיר להילחם עליה וקראת אל השלום, הייני, היכי, דלא עשו לישראל דבר. That means to say, in a situation of war, there's always situations of war. One country fights against another country. They have 6-day war. It takes place. These things take place. It's bad, it's criminal, but it's somehow understanding. Somehow. Okay? We understand it, but it's nation against nation. Rulers against rulers. Sadat Yimach Shemoy. Sorry, Assad Yimach Shemoy. That's why I say Sadat, because Sadat learned his lesson. Okay? Made peace. Assad never made peace. Okay? But war is war. Here, he says there's something different, says the Maharal. Aval heichi de asu li Yisrael davar. Please take note of the fact. Line number 128. Heichi da'asu Yisrael davar. Shechem infiltrates into Yaakov. K'gon zeh shepartzu lahem nehem nevala. People, individuals infiltrate our country. Not nations. Okay? It's not a king. Terrorists. Terrorists infiltrate the country. Shepartzu lahem nevala. It's not a war against war. It's a criminal act. You come in to your country and you take hostages. Af al gav delo asa rak echad mehem. Kivan de michlal ha'amhu, since he is a member of that nation, soldiers fighting against soldiers is one thing. Terrorists is something else completely. They are individuals or groups. Kivan shepartzu lahem tchila, since they come into our territory, they infiltrate our territory, mutar likach nikmata mehem. You're allowed to take out your vengeance on them. War against what? Let me just finish. The theory of the Maharal is the following. I can declare war against you. Declaration of war, as much as it's terrible, okay, is one thing. But when you speak about individuals or groups coming in, infiltrating, then that's a different ball game altogether. A different ball game. The Torah does accept war. We know it exists. That's what we spoke about last time. Here, infiltration is something which is completely different. When somebody infiltrates, like Shechem, he does it, he infiltrates. And you stand by and let this infiltration take place, you're all guilty of it. Kivan shepartzu lahem tchila, line number 29. Mutarim likach nikmata mehem. V'achinami kol hamilchamot shem nimtzaim k'gon sroet hamidyanim. What happens to the Midianites? What happens? They send in their girls to attack Am Yisrael. They infiltrate our territory. Religious side, moral, criminal, whatever you want. Another country infiltrates. Here, af al gav dahayu harbe shelo asu, ein ze chiluk. Kiven shayu באותה אומה שעשה רע, מותר לבוא עליהם למלחמה, וכן הם כל המלחמות. Two different concepts. Countries which declare war against another, okay, then we've got to be more careful. But the minute you infiltrate into the camp of Am Yisrael, Shimon Velevi said, you're part and parcel of a group of infiltrators. You should have stopped it. Doesn't make any difference where you're leaders. Where's your moral compass? And this becomes the foundation of a whole new concept. War is one thing. Declaration of war is one thing. Infiltration, criminal, moral infiltration, which has its impacts like Midian, then everything falls to pieces. Everyone is guilty. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu never got angry with Shimon Velevi. And Yaakov Avinu says, how are we going to live here in this country if you've taken out your wrath on terrorists? That's what Yaakov Avinu says to them. If you, Shimon and Levi, have taken out all your koiches and killed the whole of Shechem, how can we live in a country like this? But Yaakov Avinu doesn't rebuke them for their actions. You were correct, says Yaakov. The question is, what's going to be? What? The ramifications.
Well, actually, Yaakov says nothing.
No, he does.
Shimon,
He does.
No. But immediately when Shimon and Levi says,
How
could he do that? How could he make a war out of our?
No, but that's after Yaakov.
Yaakov is totally silent.
Then he's silent.
He has no answer.
He's got no answer.
That's right, he's got no answer.
Exactly. So he's worried about the ramifications. But if we look at it practically now, Yaakov Avinu says, Shimon Velevi, They infiltrated. They were the terrorists. That, Rabbi Isai, is when there is collective punishment. Collective punishment, according to this, is when a country lets their individuals infiltrate, carry on, do what they want in another person's country without declaration of war. That is something which is totally illegal. And the Torah allows us to go out and fight. Good Shabbos, everybody.
America.